It was a little past midnight when I got the call asking me to knock doors for Hillary Clinton. The caller was my friend Jason, who was working on the campaign in Pennsylvania. He wanted me to take time off of my job to help with the final push. Why me? I asked him. Isn't there someone else more qualified? At the time, I was serving as a policy advisor at the White House. And what I was actually wondering was, isn't there someone else less overqualified? I was working on change at scale. If I got this policy done on self-driving cars, we would potentially be saving over 40,000 lives per year. And if I took time off of work, I would knock how many doors? I also didn't know the first thing about talking to a stranger at their front door. What I knew about was policy. The decision seemed obvious. I could add more value right where I was. Sorry, I said. But Jason didn't give up. You want to make a difference, come knock doors. I didn't believe him, but I went anyway because a friend had asked. And I am so glad that I did. Because for a long time, I thought that the way to create change was top down. And that meant advising government leaders at McKinsey or creating policy at the White House, not knocking on doors in Pennsylvania. Maybe some of you have a similar view. But I want to talk to you about why bottom-up change matters too. Knocking on doors can change elections, change you, and change our world today. So what does it mean to knock on doors? Knocking on doors is about getting into a neighborhood and going door to door to talk to voters. It has two primary purposes: persuading voters and increasing turnout. Knocking on doors might feel old school, but it makes sense. Think about how you change someone's mind. It's face-to-face through a relationship built on trust. Knocking on doors relies on both of those strategies for persuading voters. It's also an effective tool for driving turnout. Talking to voters can provide the nudge that they need to actually get out there and vote on election day. I remember the first time I knocked on doors, I thought, this works. I remember the woman in Pittsburgh who told me she wasn't going to vote because she didn't know where her polling location was. Just the kind of information I had on hand. At another home, a man with a golden retriever stood at the door and said he wasn't going to vote because Hillary had it in the bag. I showed him the latest polling numbers, and he promised me he'd vote. After that experience, I dug into the research and found out that 2 decades of studies have shown that the surest way to change an election outcome is to have high-quality door knocking. Talking to voters and getting out the vote can make all the difference, especially when margins are tight. Take Virginia. In 2017, a heated local race between Democrat Shelley Simmons and Republican David Yancey ended in a tie. They ended up deciding the winner by pulling a name out of a hat. That one race resulted in Republicans maintaining control of the state house. That means one vote could have changed what healthcare, wages, schools look like for the state. And not every election is won by one vote, but every election cycle, there are races with razor-thin margins. Knocking on doors is also essential for national victories. In 2016, 120 million votes were cast for the presidential election. But just 107,000 of those votes in 3 states determined the outcome. 107,000 votes. To put that in perspective, if each of us at the business school had spoken with just 125 voters, which by the way, you can do in one day, we would have spoken with all of them. Yes, elections feel big and daunting, but ultimately they're won by relatively small numbers. And those small numbers have huge impact. Knocking on doors can also change you. Let's face it, it can be intimidating to knock on a stranger's door. But we also know that it's in moments of discomfort that we grow the most. And you'll grow tremendously, both as a leader and as a citizen. Today, our world is not set up to interact with people who are different from us. Instead of taking public transportation, we take Ubers. Instead of going to the movies, we opt for Netflix in bed. And when we want a cup of sugar, we don't go to our neighbors, we go to Instacart. Knocking doors gets you out of that bubble. No two conversations I've had at the door have ever been the same. As a result, I've practiced and built a range of skills. I have more empathy after listening to the stories of strangers. I take more risk after rejection at the door. And I'm much more comfortable in difficult conversations after navigating some hostile attitudes. All of those skills translate in a really real way to the workplace. If you're an entrepreneur, you'll be that much better at uncovering the needs of your customers. If you're an investor, you'll be more persuasive when it comes to raising money. For me, as a policymaker, I'm much better at analyzing the effects of my policies and programs on a range of citizens outside of my immediate circle. I'm also a more informed voter. While I might not be personally struggling with access to healthcare, thank you, Stanford Cardinal Care, after a conversation in Virginia Beach with a woman whose daughter was struggling with diabetes, I have this window into how healthcare policy affects lives and why it matters to vote for it. So knocking on doors doesn't just change elections. It also changes you. Here at the business school, my peers often say, I want to make a difference, but let me focus on making it to the top first. And then I'll do a lot with that money, power, and position to do a lot of good. But we're at a critical moment right now on climate change, on healthcare, on the future of our workforce. Our democratic processes are crumbling. Some things aren't reversible. And so we have to start changing our world today. When I came to campus back in the fall, I was excited to be surrounded by my peers who were eager to get out there and make a difference. When the 2018 midterm election rolled around, 100 students expressed interest in getting involved. But on the day that it came down to actually knocking doors, only 2 other students showed up. The district we were knocking in was Josh Harder's in Central Valley, California. He won the election, but it was so close, it took them a week to call it. Our door knocking made a difference. Very few of us are probably going to knock on doors as our full-time job. That's likely not the way that we aspire to change lives, change organizations, and change the world. But there isn't a trade-off here. You can pursue your career of top-down change while still knocking on doors today. They aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, they're mutually beneficial. We have an election coming up in 2020. Pick a race. It could be something local. It could be for the next president of the United States. And commit to getting into a neighborhood, even if just once, and knock on some doors. I'll see you out there. Thank you.